At the dawn of civilization, when oracles whispered to kings and shamans were the keepers of cosmic knowledge, the bond between humans and plants was sacred. It wasn't a fad, nor an escape masked as medicine. It was alchemy, an intimate exchange between body, spirit, and nature. In this ancient landscape, cannabis was not merely a plant. It was a portal. But every portal opens both ways, to light and to shadow. At the heart of this journey lies a rare question. What are the spiritual consequences of smoking marijuana? This isn't about governments, mainstream science, or pop culture's glamorization of weed as a symbol of rebellion. Instead, we turn to ancient traditions, sacred texts, and the words of mystics who dared to look beyond the smoke. From the sacred Arva of India to Alexandrian Hermeticism, from Rastafarian rituals to the visions of Ethiopian saints, we're not here to judge, but to reveal. Cannabis, now commercialized, criminalized, and romanticized, was once seen as a sacred key. And keys aren't meant to be worshipped, they're meant to open doors. But the question is, which doors? In ancient India, cannabis was one of the 5 sacred plants, a divine gift, linked to Amrita, the nectar of immortality. It was intimately tied to Shiva, the destroyer and renewer, who dances at the edge of illusion. Shiva's followers, the sadhus, smoked cannabis in clay chillums, not to get high, but to transcend the ego. It wasn't about escaping reality, it was about confronting it. In Taoist tradition, cannabis was believed to enhance longevity and vision. Ancient texts by alchemist Ge Hong describe herbal combinations that triggered lucid dreams and expanded awareness. But Taoism teaches balance. Cannabis can refine the body's qi, or it can throw it into chaos, like an amplifier. It magnifies whatever is already present. If the instrument, yourself, is out of tune, the results can be dangerous. Sufi mystics of medieval Islam also used cannabis and hashish as part of their path to fana, ego dissolution in the presence of the divine. Some experienced ecstasies and visions of the beloved, yet even among Sufis, caution prevailed. The poet Rumi warned, "Why seek God in drunkenness if he already dances sober within you?" The plant was to be treated as a bridge, not a crutch. In Jewish mysticism, cannabis isn't directly mentioned, but the Zohar offers a timeless warning. Those who force open the gates of light without preparation are consumed by their own ignorance. A sacred substance without spiritual readiness becomes a trap of the ego. Research suggests early Christian Gnostics and Essenes may have used cannabis-infused oils in rituals. Some scholars believe the biblical Cannae bosom was cannabis. But again, it wasn't recreational, it was ceremonial. Without ritual, the sacred becomes profane. Indigenous traditions in Africa and the Americas treated cannabis with the same reverence as ayahuasca, tobacco, or peyote. It wasn't the plant that healed, it was the spirit of the plant. And that spirit only appears through respect. Even in the Rastafari movement, ganja is a sacrament, used in reasoning sessions for collective reflection, prayer, and meditation. It's not a pastime, it's liturgy. The plant is sacred because the ritual makes it so. Across all these traditions, a common truth emerges. Cannabis is potential, and potential is neutral. It can lift or lower, liberate or trap. The defining factor is never the plant, it's the user, their awareness, their intention, their preparation. As the Corpus Hermeticum teaches, spirit does not answer to those who knock drunk on themselves. Shortcuts often turn into circles. So maybe the real question isn't whether cannabis is sacred, but whether you are sacred enough to use it. Because plants that open portals also open mirrors. And mirrors don't always show beauty. Sometimes they reveal what we've spent lifetimes avoiding. Cannabis, like many entheogens, dissolves the mask. But not every soul is ready to face its own reflection. Carl Jung, father of analytical psychology, called this the shadow. Not evil, but the hidden self. Fears, trauma, desires, ancestral pain. And cannabis often triggers anxiety or paranoia, not because it creates them, but because it uncovers what was already there. Mystic Dion Fortune wrote of how altered states can weaken our energy fields, making us vulnerable to external forces. A bad trip is often the spirit trying to purge unhealed wounds. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali acknowledge that psychic powers may arise through herbs, but they're distractions if not grounded in ethics. They feed the spiritual ego, which is even trickier than the regular one. Osho said, "Substances open doors that only silence should open. They are unstable shortcuts. Without guidance, you may enter, but lose your way back." On an energetic level, cannabis heightens sensitivity. Practitioners of Reiki, Kundalini, and ceremonial magic report intensified auras and sensations. This can be beneficial if grounded, but risky if not. The user becomes a lighthouse without a captain, attracting both light and predators. Amazonian shamans say every plant that opens is a plant that tests. And the test isn't mystical, it's moral. What will you do with what you see? Many chronic users feel spiritually active, but remain emotionally stagnant. Mystical experiences pile up, unintegrated. Kabbalists call this klipot, shells of unprocessed energy that mimic growth without substance. Peace, when it comes from the outside, is just a beautiful cage. True peace rises from chaos. It is a core, not a coat. Osho said, "Substances open doors that only silence should open." The divine meeting doesn't start with light. It begins with shadow, with shame, anger, confusion. And if you stay long enough, breathing, something shifts. Not a revelation, but an integration. Cannabis is like a mirror of water. It can show you the sky, but if you dive too fast, you'll find only mud. In sacred traditions, no spiritual journey is fully individual. Everything is connected. What we experience shapes culture, and what culture reflects shapes how we see ourselves. And so cannabis, once a sacrament, has become a commodity, a meme, a Netflix theme, but not everywhere. In indigenous circles, in urban seekers reclaiming ritual, the plant still speaks. Because spirituality isn't what you feel, it's what you generate. It's not about visions, it's about who you become after the visions fade. As an old African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go in a circle. Bring the drum, bring the fire, bring the plant, but bring it with reverence. The spiritual path isn't about the highs you reach, it's about the depth you sustain. Cannabis, like any power plant, offers no guarantees, only possibilities. And you stand at a crossroads. Do you seek to awaken or to escape? Osho once said, "Anything can become meditation if you're present. Anything can become a drug if you're absent." The real issue isn't the plant, it's your presence. And when presence is absent, even the sacred becomes a carousel. That's why ancients fasted, chanted, prepared, not from superstition, but energetic hygiene. They knew a portal is not a place for sightseeing, it's a place of passage, and not all are ready for what lies on the other side. Viveka in Vedanta, krino in Greek, discernment, the invisible blade that cuts illusion from truth. The third eye, not as power, but as compass. Used without that compass, cannabis creates a foggy mirror where the ego sees itself as awakened while simply napping in the lap of sensation. So yes, cannabis holds spiritual potential, but potential without context, discipline, and discernment is just a distraction. True spirituality is not about escape, but staying. Not about what you see in the dark, but what you do in the light. When you light that joint, ask yourself, what am I seeking? Peace? Space? Silence? If you can't find those within, the plant is only lending you a mirror. And mirrors don't transform, they reflect. Thanks for watching.